Hi, my name is Gordon. This is for the Bio 182 video final presentation, which compares a news article to a primary source article, which the news article was Warmer Coastline Impacts Wildlife, Plymouth Study Shows. And then the primary article that I was referring to is titled Facing Up to Climate Change. Community composition varies with aspect to surface temperature and in the Rocky Intertidal. So looking at the news story first, the main findings were presented as it was described that there was an increase of 1.5 degrees Celsius in an environment occurred, then there would be significant impact on algae and wildlife. And they talked about the main experimental method within the article, which was comparing colder coasts in northern areas to warmer coasts in southern areas, because the southern coast had a temperature averaging 1.6 degrees higher at lower tide, which bridges that 1.5 degrees gap, so they could measure the different aspects of those coasts. And they observed less abundance and breeding than northern coasts. And that is all of the data that they give in the news article, except for some scattered quotes about the study's senior author, Dr. McHanley, which didn't really seem to have a lot of relevance to the actual point of the article. They were just kind of dropped in with no explanation, which is interesting. So going to the actual primary article, the scientific study, it was way more in-depth analysis, which makes sense, as they compared average annual and frequency of extreme temperature, intertidal community composition changes, phenological shifts, and osmotic stress, and how that impacts the different temperature coasts differently. So there were several figures, but the one I chose to present on and kind of go in depth was this figure, which the A portion is a Bray-Curtis dissimilarity statistical analysis, which doesn't have any numbers on each axis, but it's used to quantify the compositional dissimilarity between the two different sites based on the counts of at each site. So the blue signifies a northern coast, red being a southern one. The lighter shade of the colors means that it was taken in summer, and the darker means winter. And the different shapes, you can see there are some circles and some squares, some have holes in them. Those mean that they were taken from different coasts, as they wanted to increase their sample size and take several northern coasts and several southern coasts and compare those. And then our B part of our figure talks about the mean percentage cover of organisms, and then measuring their abundance. And there was a statistical significant difference between the warmer and colder, or pole-facing and equator-facing, respectively, coasts, as the p-value was less than 0.01. And then there were also some statistical differences in our C portion of our figure, which measures species richness in the 5 main functional and taxonomic groups. The statistically different ones being all taxa, primary producers, and grazers. And then another part of the primary article that was not mentioned in the news story was the model relating temperature and variation at a local scale effects on community composition, which I thought was interesting because their model was different than other models, and that incorporates microhabitat variation on organismal ecophysiology, which was interesting, but also it makes sense that the news article wouldn't cover this, because to the normal consumer of BBC, they probably don't understand what this means. And I think the main point of the article, in either case, was to raise awareness for climate change and its effects on life and our coasts specifically. So while the news article left out a lot of important information, the main findings were presented in an interesting way. I don't know why they dropped some quotes in there at the end, but the main purpose was to get it to the consumer in a way that they could understand, and that makes sense. So if you're looking for the data, then I would go to the primary article and find out through the figures what was statistically significant, because there were some areas that were not. But if you want the general information, the news article did accomplish that. They weren't incorrect in what they stated. So here are my references. First one being the primary article, and the second one being the news study. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Slides Go and Biology 182. Thank you.